Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, Nadine Stewart-Phillips, addresses the media.
Now, this afternoon, I am joined by the Executive Chairman of the Tobago Festivals Commission, who I would ask to speak a little later, specifically as it relates to the functionings currently of the Festivals Commission. We have Carnival season, our Jazz Festival, and all the other festivals. I just want to give a recap of some of the notable achievements of the division for 2017 since assuming office on January 26, 2017. And so the first major achievement that I just want to reiterate briefly, if I may, is the formation of the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited. And of course, that agency is one that the stakeholders of Tobago would have been clamoring for a number of years. And currently, the agency is in the operationalization stages where they are recruiting staff members. We have a CEO on board, as you are well aware, and they are currently in the recruitment stages. We had a new product launch, our interactive museum at Fort King George. We have currently paused that interactive museum just so that we can assess and ensure that it remains effective going forward in 2018. We had our first ever in Tobago Tourism Youth Symposium as well. That was it forms part of our awareness, tourism awareness in Tobago. And we are moving to the second phase next week, and that is actually setting up the youth clubs at the secondary schools. We had a number of secondary schools present at this youth symposium, and they would have pitched ideas. And so we are now moving to set up the youth clubs in the school to ensure that the message of tourism remains throughout the schools. And as among schools, we also had the first ever primary school awareness quiz competition. Again, that is part of encouraging tourism awareness, tourism and cultural awareness at the primary school level as well. For 2017 missions undertaken by the division, we had the ITB that was back in March, and we had our World Travel Market in London. I remember speaking extensively to some of the accomplishments at World Travel Market. And one of the major ones we had was the announcement of the Virgin Mapping Project. As a matter of fact, this project officially started last Monday, and that is where Virgin Atlantic, a team of persons, came down to Tobago and took photographs and videos of specific sites and attractions in Tobago. And once you click on Tobago on that Virgin Mapping site, you can zoom in and get to see Pigeon Point. And one of the things we are encouraging our visitors to do as well is, once you come, to tag specific locations or attractions that our visitors liked when they come, so that other persons can click on let's say, for example, Pigeon Point, Fort King George, and see exactly these attractions before coming to the destination. In the area of culture, we had our Cuban exchange workshop and concerts, and that was hosted in collaboration with the National Company of Cuba. That was held in March 2017 at the Shore Park Cultural Complex. Of course, we had the Tobago Heritage Festival. After 9 years, Tobago once again re-entered the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy competition. We participated as well in Carifesta, and for 2019, Trinidad and Tobago would be the host country for Carifesta. Transportation, our cruise season is ongoing, and this year the destination is expected to welcome the highest ever number of cruise passengers. We have an estimation of 67 calls, and these calls are increasing because even sometimes 2 days before you have cruise ships asking if they can come to Tobago. As well, the Executive Council signed off on a proposal submitted from Apollo that's in relation to the Scandinavian market. And of course, the CEO of the agency is in communication with Apollo for a winter 2018-2019 start. So that's just some of the achievements we had coming out of the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation for 2017.
The Tobago Festivals Commission is something that was envisioned by the Tobago House Assembly as far back as 2010. Reactivating the commission, which had fallen dormant for some time, was a direct recommendation of the committee that looked into the Tobago Jazz Festival. It seems to be a very good idea to have the talent that we have available to us, the resources that we have available to us, housed in a place where we can exploit those talents and resources year-round. There were people in the past, for example, attached to the Heritage Festival and Carnival, and they had two high seasons during the year, and during the rest of the year there's not very much else going on. And on the other side of the coin, for the Jazz Festival, it was discovered that there was not really a standing group of persons whose absolute responsibility it was to deliver the Jazz Festival. What you had were public servants who had other responsibilities, and along with the responsibilities, you held a particular portfolio for the Jazz Festival and so on. The way that the Tobago Festivals Commission is designed to operate, for each festival, we are hoping to have one person assigned with absolute year-round lead responsibility for that event. That doesn't mean that the individual is not also engaged in the delivery of other events, but that individual must keep their fingers on the pulse of that event and ensure that everything relevant to that event continues to have the attention that's required for it at that particular point in time. And I can give you a today example. At 3 o'clock today, we'd actually be meeting in the midst of hurrying for Carnival with the Heritage Festival coordinators, because our target for starting the advertising of the Tobago Heritage Festival this year is during Carnival this year, and we hope to be able to finalize the schedule for the Heritage Festival, so it's out now. So we are, by definition, going to have a lot of balls in the air at the same time, and working with timelines that are specific to every event, but ensuring that our year-roundedness is truly year-roundedness, if I'm to coin a phrase, keeping it always exciting, economical, and efficient. I know the thing that's on people's minds is, of course, the question of the Tobago Jazz Festival. And let me say before you ask that I've been assured by the administrator that with regard to those individuals who may have outstanding payments from the Jazz Festival, the process, the paperwork has been ratified and the payments are in process. I'm not in a position to say by what specific day that people would be paid, but the process is as it would be for any other government process when you have to make a payment that has been delayed. The biggest thing about any festival we have is the product that appears on stage and the way that product is communicated to the audience. The good artist selection makes up for a multitude of sins. The Executive Council has decided that having the Jazz Festival in 2018 and maintaining the momentum that has built up for the festival over the years is important. And it's also important to select the right artists. The lyric I was listening to was Bunji Garlin. Bunji Garlin's birthday was advertised for one day and every bill got paid. If we choose the right artists, it's our intention to have every bill paid. Every bill paid from the perspective, and I think there's a philosophical change in the way that we are approaching the festival to how it was approached in the past. In the past, the festival is approached, if you read a lot of the literature like I have, as a marketing tool. We think that the festival is a marketing tool, but we also think that the festival must show significant progress towards paying its own way. Significant progress to having a direct return on the investment made in the festival in the first instance. The secondary returns, the things people always talk about, spin-offs and taxi drivers and hotels and all that kind of stuff. We want those things properly measured and evaluated. But in the first instance, it would be a mistake to simply think about the cost of staging the festival as an expense item. It's an investment, and as far as it is possible to have a direct return. Direct return, I'm speaking specifically about gate receipts and sponsorship on that investment to start with. So we minimize, in the first instance, the exposure of the assembly in terms of the cost of the festival. To backtrack to Carnival, I hope that I'm boasting when we say that we had significant successes in Carnival. And significant successes present a challenge to us to maintain the standard or to do better going forward. And doing better is dependent in part on us, but it's also significantly dependent on the masqueraders, the band leaders, the calypsonians, and the steel bands. If last night's and last week's steel band competitions were any indication, we certainly headed for a bumper carnival. All of the bands, in my view, were outstanding. Those bands who were good last year were at least as good, if not better. And those bands who were not so good last year have moved up. Maybe they went straight past good and they went to very good, as far as I am concerned, and as far as people who know more about those things than I do are concerned. We go from that, of course, into all the regular events. The interdepartment competition is set up to go, and it's set up to go at Shaw Park, with the expectation that Shaw Park will be ready. We have not neglected the possibility that it may not, and we do have the framework of a backup plan in case that becomes necessary. It seems hardly likely at this point that that would be necessary. We have the following day the steel band competition, the THA Pan Champs, and the THA Pan Champs will be intense. I was just speaking to the president of Pan Trinbago and boasting that the THA Pan Champs might actually be better than the Panorama Finals. I always say things like that. After that, we have, at the senior level, of course, kings, queens, and individuals taking place in the streets of Scarborough. And one tweak that we are going to make from last year, and I think it's an important one, is that for senior citizens and persons with challenges, we are going to make a certain limited number of passes, and we hope people really make genuine requests for those passes that would allow those individuals to be driven into Scarborough up to half an hour before the start time of the event, because you know that the streets would normally be closed at 5 o'clock, but you couldn't really, for 7 o'clock start, you couldn't really ask people to come 2 hours before. So if you had one of those passes, we want to get you in, and we're also going to put a bleacher on the Tobago United Cooperative compound that would allow for some seating, hopefully mostly for people who fall in that category. We are also going to prescribe for the masqueraders a route on the street that forces them, if you will, to use the entire, almost 2/3 of the length of the boardwalk. So when they come out of the Scotiabank Junction, they'd be required to turn left, make it up as far as Yonko, turn around and come down and go down as far as First Citizen Bank as a part of their presentation. That way, persons on all parts of the boardwalk could have an opportunity to see the costumes rather than them just coming forward to the point where the judges are located, and then everybody else who's out on the wings doesn't get a good look at what's going on. We operated a very tight time script for that because we want to be as minimally disruptive to Scarborough as we can be, and to have Scarborough returned hopefully to pristine condition for the next day. To move on to Calypso, using the generic name to cover them all, we were able to broker a relationship with Tuco and the operators of the Soca Monarch, where we're going to have one show. So that the first round would be the Calypso competition, which would crown a Tobago Calypso Monarch, and the second round would be the Soca competition, so that they take place in the same space on the same day. And that space will also be the compound that's currently being used as a car park by the Tobago United Cooperative in the middle of Scarborough. On that occasion, all of the activities will be off of the street and within the compound. The compound will be fenced, and there will be a fee for patrons. So that brings us to Thursday. In the day on Thursday, of course, the children's program will take place in Windward, Tobago, the Youth Carnival Extravaganza. As you know, there's not a Youth Carnival Extravaganza in Scarborough. There is a panorama competition, which will in fact take place on the Monday, and that will take place at Signal Hill Senior Comprehensive. It is our intention to rotate that competition around schools, and Signal Hill, however, has been given a second chance because they were first up last year, was pretty late notice, and they didn't have an opportunity to prepare, to sell products, to have the school be good host of all the other persons coming in. So we're giving them a second shot at it, and then it will be rotated next year. Meanwhile, the school's Calypso competition will take place at the Goodwood High School. The date, we're having a little challenge fixing the date absolutely, because a number of the performers from Tobago have qualified for competitions in Trinidad, and some of those competitions take place in Trinidad on different days. So we're trying to sort out which day we'll have all the performers from Tobago available. Just another note on the panorama. The panorama will operate in 2 categories, juniors and seniors, so there would be a separate category for the primary schools. On Saturday, we move on to the parade of the bands for children on the streets of Scarborough. That parade, the streets are usually closed by the police at 10 o'clock. The parade starts at 11 and it runs until 6 p.m. We're making really every effort to encourage band leaders that the carnival is a daytime activity, and it's a daytime activity especially for children. So we want the band leaders to know that you need to be out there and you need to be pretty much handing the children back over to their mummies and daddies and so on by 6 o'clock. The judging points remain the same on the Esplanade and in the vicinity of Barcode, pending an OSHA report that says that Barcode is safe. We don't think that there's going to be any problem with that. On Saturday night, we go to Roxborough for the Afro Queen show and the Calypso Monarch, the Windward Calypso Monarch competition. The commission and the Carnival committee are very proud of the Windward Carnival committee and its chairperson Marissa Williams and the work they have been doing, particularly with the very stringent challenges we've given them as far as finance is concerned. And they do have 8 young ladies who are in preparation for the competition, and we expect that competition to be the usual hit that it has always been on the calendar. Sunday's Children's Parade in Roxborough is on as usual. It is, in some estimations, the parade that has the highest amount of participation in Roxborough. We, as usual, provide assistance with transportation for bands to go up to participate and all of that, and we expect that to go well. Monday, maybe I should just finish off with Roxborough. On Monday, there is the adult parade in the afternoon, and there's, of course, Juve in the morning. I went to Roxborough for Carnival Monday afternoon. I think I was the only lost sailor in Roxborough on Monday afternoon, and I was truly lost with the idea that the parade route, the distance between the 2 major points, the cultural complex and the Roxborough courtyard, was really too close for a real parade to take place. So we, with the exception of the children's parade, extending the route, and this has already been discussed with the police. The logistical management is not absolutely complete, but that the parade route will run from Pablo's Supermarket all the way up to Boatyard. From Pablo's Supermarket to Boatyard, an extended route. Is something that the masqueraders didn't have a problem accepting at all. There's a hope that we reduce the bottlenecks by using the courtyard as a mass on the move judging point rather than as a point where bands will stop and make a display of any kind. So they will be judged there, but it will be judged on the move. And in the area of Boatyard, we are working with the police to make a special arrangement to allow for vehicles to turn around, maybe by allowing 1 vehicle into the turnaround area at a time. That is expected to reduce bottlenecks. I say it within the context of Roxborough, but it applies equally and very importantly in every part of the Carnival parade. And that is, we are calling on masqueraders that at any parade, at any time, when any emergency vehicle of any hue requires clearance to pass, we want people to respond to that. We are asking DJs to turn off music, masqueraders to go to the side, DJs and bars to turn off music, masqueraders to go to the side of the road and allow the vehicle through. We hope that all of that in combination helps to make the parade in Roxborough more enjoyable. We move therefore to Scarborough and Juve, the Juve celebrations in Scarborough the Juve celebration in Scarborough presented something that was unique in Tobago, and that was a safe space for pan. There were 9 steel bands on the road in Scarborough on Juve morning last year. And we want to emphasize that there are a number of experiences that make Juve. And one of those experiences is pushing pan and jumping up behind a pan side. So what will happen in Scarborough is, as happened last year, we'll divide it into 2 circles, an upper circle and a lower circle. And from the start of Juve until 7:30 a.m., music trucks will be restricted to the upper part of Scarborough and steel bands to the lower part. And from 7:30 a.m. it reverses, and the music trucks can go down in the direction of the Esplanade, and the steel bands come into Upper Scarborough. It worked reasonably well last year. There's always a transition point where the steel bands and the music trucks clash with each other. But one of the things that's happening with the steel bands is that the steel bands do have to attend at both judging points, both at the Dockside and Market Square, in order to be judged, so that they must traverse the streets. It's not steel bands standing on one location playing, they must traverse. As the Juve bands and the Old Mass bands would also be required to go to both judging points, so that they know when they have to go to the Uptown judging point and they know when they have to go to the judging point on the Esplanade. Monday afternoon, we do have 26 traditional bands registered, which is an increased number, and those bands will parade on Monday afternoon, starting from 1 o'clock in Scarborough and from 2 o'clock in Roxborough. To close Monday, it's Monday night mass. And one of the things that I hope that the festival learns and imbibes is, when there's nothing wrong with something, just leave it alone. And we have left Monday night mass essentially alone because it works very well. People enjoy it. More and more bands are registering and participation. We didn't find the need to do any adjustments whatsoever to Monday night mass, and it continues. On Monday, there is Juve in Canaan Bonaccord. It is a private sector, community-driven activity that receives the support of the Festival Commission. We do contribute to prizes and the provision of music, and that will continue. We'll again provide prizes and music. Usually around this time, there would already be a rumor that there's no Juve in Canaan Bonaccord, and that rumor usually persists until Carnival Sunday night. So if I hear it next week and the week after, I promise you that I'll not be surprised. However, from where we sit, that event is on.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending January 27th, 2018.